It's everybody's favorite time of the year. It's major time, which means that we have to do our pick'ems for the elimination stage. Now, there already was a previous stage before this, which was the opening stage, but unfortunately I was out of town, so I didn't make a video, but here's how my pick'ems went. They didn't go that well. There was a couple of unaccounted for upsets that happened. I didn't quite expect ENCE to not make it. I also didn't quite expect Apex to not make it, but regardless, we don't have to worry about that anymore because we're here to focus on the elimination stage of this event, and I want to give some pretty in-depth thoughts about what I think is going to happen in the next stage, and we'll get right into that right after a quick word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is a site where you can trade skins that you already have to get some skins that you might want. That way you can hop into your next game with some fresh new skins. All you have to do is log into the site through Steam, put in the skins that you don't want anymore, grab the skins that you do, and then click trade. Trades happen almost immediately, and any balance that you don't use in the trade will roll over for a trade that you might do in the future. Right now you can get a free $5 if you were to use code Austin on the site, and if you were to use my code you would get an additional 5% on top of the 30% deposit bonus. So let's say if you deposit $100, that means you would get $135 if you use my code to deposit. So make sure you guys check out SkinsMonkey, and let's get right back into the video. This will actually be the first major that I'm attending in person, so I'm very invested in this, and I've been watching every single game leading up to this. So I'm going to give you what I think is probably the safest pick'ems that you can go for, at least from things that I've seen so far this event. And we're going to start off with our 3-0 and our 0-3 picks as per usual. Starting with 0-3, there's two teams that I have a pretty good feeling are not going to make it to the next stage, which would be, of course, Pain Gaming and the Mongols. Now, I'm going to give you a reason why I think this, and I think it's because Pain Gaming has pretty much overperformed in the previous stage. Every team that Pain actually did beat in the last stage has all been eliminated. They did have a pretty good win over ENCE. They did beat SAW, but SAW has been overperforming against better teams, and they also did get stomped by the only team that is going to be in the next stage, which is Eternal Fire, and of course they also did beat, where was it? Apex, which Apex didn't look that good. Not a very convincing showing, so I'm going to put Pain in 0-3. The other team that I think is going 0-3 is the Mongols. Now, many people will be wondering why that is, and to be honest, it's because of the same reason. Mongols didn't look that convincing, and the only teams that they actually did get wins over were teams that are not going to be in the next stage, and the teams that they did actually lose to, the Mongols lost to, well, they lost a map to Amcal, which is also kind of, you know, a little scary, but they also lost to Ecstatic, they lost to Heroic. These are teams that I don't expect them to be able to compete with, especially teams that are much better than those teams in this stage. I have a feeling Mongols will go 0-3. There's also a pretty good chance that Imperial or Furia will go 0-3, but just based on the fact that there's a chance that these teams might play each other, I'm favoring Imperial and Furia to still win those head-to-head matchups regardless. You can go either way. I feel like these bottom four teams are your safe 0-3 picks. Any variation of these, you're probably going to get at least one of them. I'm hoping that I get 2 for 2 on these picks, but either way, let's move on to the 3-0 picks. It's a little scary because these days you have to be 100% accurate. You can't game the system like in previous pick'em challenges. So for this, I think it's pretty safe to put Vitality in 3-0. They're probably one of the best teams, if not the best team heading into this event. Now, a lot of people will say Spirit, a lot of people will say FaZe, maybe you even want to say G2 could go in 3-0, and I would agree with you for the most part. There's only one thing that I'm worried about, which is that if I were to put Spirit in 3-0, there's a chance that they can get upset in a best of one early on, and I have a feeling that since Spirit haven't really competed at this stage in a major before, actually some of them haven't competed at a major at all, there's a chance that they could get caught off at least in their first or second best of one. I feel like there's a pretty good chance they won't go 3-0. Now, I don't doubt that they're going to make a deep run and they will 100% make it to the next stage, but I want to make sure that I picked right, so I'm actually going to go ahead and put FaZe in my 3-0 pick. I think that it's more likely FaZe will come out on top. They have a bunch of experienced players. Many times they've been to majors, and to be honest, I don't really see them losing unless they were to draw Vitality in a match, or maybe they end up drawing a team like, oh, I don't know, maybe a Na'Vi or a VP in the best of one stages, and they might get unlucky. But I think they have a very safe 3-0 potential. Regardless, let's move on to the 3-1 and 3-2 picks. Now, this is probably going to be all of your likely suspects. We're going to start with Na'Vi, of course. There's not really a world I don't see Na'Vi making it through. I mean, there definitely has been times when they've looked better, but I don't think that they look bad enough to not make playoffs at this major, so I'm going to put them through. Of course, I'm also going to put G2 through. Now, G2 do look a little rocky, I will admit. They have looked a lot better as well, but it's time for the major. You know Nika's going to step up to the plate. You know Monosi's going to step up as well, and it just seems like they should be able to secure playoffs, albeit it might be a little labored. They might sneak in at 3-2, but I do suspect that they'll make it. Next pick, Team Spirit. There's pretty much no world that Spirit don't make the major playoffs, that is. I think the only thing that could possibly happen is maybe Donk just drops off a cliff, forgets how to play the game. If that happens, then maybe they won't make it to the next stage, but we already know that that's not likely at all. Probably pretty safe to put Spirit in your 3-1-3-2 selection. This is where things become a lot more 50-50 because I'm fairly confident that we'll get at least one 0-3 team, and I'm fairly confident we'll get one of the 3-0 teams. And these 3 teams should be as safe as you can get for pick'ems. So these last 3 spots are kind of wild card spots because on the one hand, I really want to put VP, but VP also, it's a question mark. Like, I don't know how they look going into this major. I mean, the system that James calls around is very volatile in my opinion, and they can easily not make it to playoffs, especially when they're playing a scrappier team that could just, you know, play to those weaknesses that I think VP has. I still think they're one of the better teams here. I still think there's a really good chance they make playoffs. Then you have the likes of Mouse. Mouse, of course, really good team as well. I see a world where they make playoffs. I also see a world where they go 2-3 and near miss playoffs. It's really hard to say. Then you, of course, have Complexity, the saviors of NA. Is there a world that they can keep this performance that they've had in CS2 so far, carrying on from IEM Sydney since, you know, the release of the game to now? I mean, they've looked decent. I think that they are definitely good enough to make playoffs. I don't know though. It's hard. It's a scary pick. Then you have Cloud9, the super team from CIS region. You know, you have Electronic, Boomage, and Hobbit. Cloud9, it seems like the pick that you're gonna want, right? Like, I feel like your safest bet here is to pick probably Cloud9. I feel like there's too much experience on a team like this for them to not make playoffs. I also want to say VP will probably make it. I mean, the core of this team did win a major just 2 years ago, and I feel like they still have the potential to bring it back. Even though it might not be the most convincing showing for them, I do think that it's a pretty safe bet to put Virtus Pro going through. And then the last spot is kind of, who knows, right? Like, you want to give it to Heroic because, you know, they're a team that's been looking pretty good. They did go 3-0 in the last stage. I want to give it to Mouse. I want to give it to Complexity. It's tough. I really don't know where I don't know which direction I want to head. It's definitely not going to go to Eternal Fire or Static, Imperial Furia. I mean, of course, there's always going to be a potential for a team like that to make playoffs, but I don't want to put them in the pick'ems because I feel like it's too volatile. It's too unlikely. So I feel like I'm going to probably just go with our safest bet and put Heroic. Of course, I think Mouse and Complexity both have potential. I don't think they're going to do it though. I think when push comes to shove, these teams are more likely to make it. They're going to play closer, and I think that this is probably the best pick'ems that you can have going into this stage. There's a few that you could swap around. Like I said initially, you could swap out Furia for any of these teams. You could swap out Imperial. I think that those are very likely to go 0-3. Of course, Imperial, very good team. Furia, very good team. But at this major, I feel like they're most likely to go without a win. Regardless, this is probably it. I think Aesthetic, they as a team are too new to expect them to make it to playoffs. Eternal Fire, a very good team as well, but again, I just don't see a world. I mean, I guess they could maybe sneak in this last spot, but I don't see it. You're more likely to see Complexity or Mouse to take the spot over, you know, one of these teams. Maybe Mouse take it over Heroic. Maybe they take it over Virtus Pro. I could see a world where maybe G2 don't qualify and then randomly Complexity make it. So, you know, it's all over the place. Do what you want with these pick'ems. This is my Austin CS official pick'ems. You can, you know, screenshot them, laugh at me in a few days when I still have the silver coin, and we'll go from there. If you did enjoy it, make sure you like. You only have a few more hours to lock your picks, so make sure you go fast. It's only 6 more hours. So see you then. Oh, and make sure you save it. Make sure you save it. If you don't save it, then bad things will happen.